Okay, great. Hey, everybody. This is Shelly Walsh with Good Karma Ranch Alpacas, and we are going to interview Sean Riley today from the New England Alpaca Fiber Pool. And if you have been on a farm tour at our farm, we talk about this at the beginning of every single farm tour that we do on our farm when we talk about what do we do with our fiber when we harvest it annually. And we always explain that we send the majority of our clip to a fiber cooperative in Massachusetts. And so here he is. So we wanted to just get you some more information about that process because we get a lot of questions about it. So Sean is going to talk to you a little bit about the process at the fiber pool. So Sean, I'm going to let you explain what your title and position is at the co-op, if you want to just give us a little background.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Sean Riley. I've been working for the New England Alpaca Fiber Pool since 2007. As far as what my title is, that's a really great question. I'll have to ask my bosses. You know, everyone here, we're a small business. We have 12 people total, and everyone here does so many different things day to day. And so it's really hard to categorize what I do because it changes hour to hour, day to day. But I think if I inflate my ego a little bit and put a nice title on it, I would probably refer to myself as the Chief Operations Officer of the company.
Yeah, I know you wear a lot of hats. So
yes, seriously, and everyone does. Everyone does.
Yeah. And how long have you been involved at the co-op?
So I have been working here since 2007. So this is now my 13th year here.
Excellent. And your family is involved as well?
The New England Alpaca Fiber Pool was originally started by 3 alpaca owners in 1997. And my parents, they had an old farm in Massachusetts, and they don't really have any farming background, but they bought an old farm property and they wanted to revitalize the property. No one had farmed the land since the 70s. So they were kind of figuring out what they wanted to do, and they stumbled across alpacas. I think they bought their first 3 fiber males in the year 2000. And then they started figuring out what they could do with the fiber. They researched, they found the fiber pool. The fiber pool happened to be located in the next town over from where we're located, just as luck would have it. My mother started volunteering there in 2000, and then she started helping out with the business at that point. I mean, and at this time, it still really was in its infancy. And the original founder in 2002, her husband died unexpectedly, and she basically kind of put her hands up. She said, "Hey, listen," to my parents. She said, "You know, I can't do this on my own, and you know, I either am going to sell the business or I'm just going to shut it down." And my parents saw the potential there, so they ended up buying the business in 2002. So they kind of ran it from 2002 to 2007, and then that's when I kind of got involved. So yeah, so it is a family business. My parents own the company. I've been here since 2007. My sister has also started working here in the last few years. And then we have 8 people that are non-family that work for us as well.
And you, after college though, because you have a degree in economics and finance, correct? And
yes.
You disappeared after college for a little while.
So I went to school for business. And, you know, I really had no interest in the farming aspect of it. You know, I kind of thought they were crazy for buying the fiber pool. As a business on paper, when they bought it, it did not look like a smart decision, you know, but there was a lot of potential there. And I think one thing that they're really good at throughout their lives is they're able to identify the potential in something. They don't look at it what it is now. They look at it what it can be in 10. And this was 20 years ago now. So obviously it's grown into a successful business. And I would say it's a real business. We pay our bills, and so we've been fairly successful, which is always good. So yeah, but when I went to school in Boston. I had no interest in returning back to my small town. I had no interest in alpacas, no interest in textiles whatsoever. But I went to school for 4 years, and when I finished school, I got a job with my degree, and I worked for a large bank in Boston. And after about a year, I said to myself, this is not all it's cracked up to be. And it's kind of funny because if you read the profiles of farms that got involved in alpacas very early on, a lot of them as well. I mean, obviously this is a generation above me. They all worked decent jobs in corporate America, and they said, "Hey, this is not to be. I'm living comfortable. I want to do something that's a little bit more connected to, whether it just be." Something a little bit, I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but something a little bit closer to earth, I guess, a
Yeah,
little bit more
something that feels
grounded. And
more
I think
real.
that's where a lot of people, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of felt a similar way, granted I was in my early 20s at this point, but I noticed right away, I said, this is not for me. And at that point in the fiber pool's history, it wasn't necessarily a successful business, but there was a lot of potential there, and it started to gain a little bit of momentum. And I kind of expressed my frustration with my situation to my family, and they were in a position where they could. It was at that point, it was just the two of them, and they kind of said, "Hey, listen, I know this is the last thing you want to do, but move back to Westport, move back to the area, and work for the fiber pool for 6 months, and let's just see how it goes. We might find out we don't work well together, or it's too high stress, or this isn't going to be a real business no matter what we do to it. So just basically, let's give it a 6-month test trial." And so I said, "Hey, sure, it's better than what I'm doing now." So I did it, and I've been there ever since.
That's great. I love that story because
Yeah,
like you, I talk to a lot of alpaca farmers as well. And my husband being one of those, who also left a corporate high stress job, to totally change, right? Do a
yeah,
180, for lots of reasons. So yeah,
yeah,
I get it. So I appreciated
yep,
your story. I'm glad we got to share
yeah,
that.
yeah. No, it's cute.
So I guess what I'd like to do for our viewers, and a lot of the people that are watching probably have been to our farm or maybe hope to come to the farm. And like I said at the beginning, I always mention, we always talk about harvesting the fiber, and then where does it go? How does it get out of my field, back all the way around to my shop? So I was hoping you could walk us through sort of that process at a sort of very high level, but just so people understand what happens once I bring you my fiber at the Carolina Alpaca Show every year and
Sure.
drop it off in your possession. What happens? What happens next?
All right, I'm going to share that graphic that you
Oh,
mentioned
good.
earlier. So
I
it
love
kind
this
of
graphic.
gives, yeah, so it's very high level, but it gives a good
Yeah.
overview of kind of what the fiber pool does. So let me just see if I can do
We
this
just
correctly.
ordered this poster, Sean, so we're going to hang it in our
Oh,
store. I
that's
think
great.
it'll help people understand.
Yeah, no, it certainly helps. Is my screen sharing properly now?
I can see it, so I think we're
Yeah, okay,
good.
perfect. Yeah,
Okay.
all right, perfect. So this is just kind of a visual overview of what the fiber pool does. So in a nutshell, um, you know, the alpacas were first imported into the United States in 1984, and at that point there was a very small population of alpacas. I think around 1997, that's when the fiber pool was started. That's when there was about 40 or 50,000 alpacas in the country. So there finally was enough alpacas in the country to start looking into commercial scale processing options. And at that point, farms ranged from people who had 5 alpacas to people who had 500, and everywhere in between. When you're dealing with commercial scale manufacturers, their minimums are very large. So there's no one alpaca farm that can walk into a textile mill and say, I want you to spin the yarn for me, and they say, okay, no problem. How much fiber do you have to spin into yarn? And they come back and say, oh, well, my herd produces 120 pounds a year or 180 pounds a year. And the mills just laugh you out of the room, because their whole business is setting up their equipment once and then running it. And that's how they make their money, is when their mill is running. So they're not really big on prototyping in small lots. So that's kind of where the fiber pool came in. It allowed farms of any size that produce any quantity of fiber to pool that fiber together by light color and light grade. And then we're able to take advantage of economies of scale, and we gain access into commercial scale manufacturers. So instead of showing up to a spinning mill with 300 pounds, we can show up with 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 pounds. And then we're able to gain access to a lot more manufacturers. And you can see in the how it works graphic that when fiber comes into NEAFP, first thing we do is sort it, and then it gets baled up by light color and light grade. And then those lots go up to be scoured. So all of the dirt and the debris and all the resin of the fiber gets washed off. Then it gets spun into yarn. Then it gets knit at various different factories. And then it actually comes back to us here. And then we handle the cut and sew, the finishing and label. And also we do dyeing as well. So we do a lot of the beginning of the manufacturing, and we do a lot of the last few steps before it's what we call ready for shelf. And then we use commercial scale manufacturers all located in the United States to kind of subcontract out the scouring, spinning, and knitting.
So I really appreciate you going through that because, well, you obviously describe it a lot better than I do during a farm tour. So I appreciate this, and I'm glad to be getting this infographic into the shop. But it really helps. And then again, I just want to reiterate, I know you said this, but this is all done in the United States, which I love.
Yes.
And while we do carry things in our store made in Peru, I love just for various reasons, but I love having product that we contribute fiber to end up back in our shop that has been made from the beginning to the end in the United States. And by from the beginning, I mean like from the minute that alpaca starts eating grass that then grows its fiber, right? I mean, it really is from the very beginning.
Yes,
so I love this model, and I'm so glad that your parents and others, and now you, are working on this and making this happen, because I know it's got to be a labor of love. So
certainly.
I love this model. Now, when you, so you're saying you outsource the cleaning, the spinning, the knitting a good bit. It's still pretty local to where you are in Massachusetts, correct?
Relatively, the majority of our manufacturers are within 500 miles of us. There's actually quite a bit of textile factories down in North Carolina that we use. North Carolina very much still has a very strong textile industry. I think a lot of times people just assume that there's nothing in the country that does this anymore. And a lot of people who are trying to develop new products or be very quick to write off US manufacturing. And I think part of that is because obviously it's much more expensive to manufacture in the United States. And also I think it's a little bit more challenging. It's tough. I mean, I always joke that it took us about 10 years of trial and error to produce a halfway decent product. And that was because we were working with manufacturers that had no experience with alpaca whatsoever. A lot of the original manufacturers that we used, they did have experience with sheep's wool, but there's quite a learning curve to set up your equipment to get it to run properly. Although alpaca, specifically the wakaya fiber, is similar to sheep's wool, it still has many, many differences. So there was a lot of trial and error. And we ourselves did not have any textile background. The only backgrounds we had was we've run businesses before successfully, and my parents owned alpacas, and that was our experience. One thing that really we benefited from is the fiber pool was founded in Fall River, Massachusetts, and that's where we're located now. But Fall River, at one point, was considered the textile capital of the world. I think around 1905, we had the most spinning spindles in any city in anywhere in the world, and that was in the 1900s. So although textiles are not as big in Fall River now to this day, especially since the 1970s with globalization, there was a lot of people that had ties to the textile world. And so we tapped into a network located in Fall River of mostly retired business owners that had textile experience. And they really helped NEAFP in the early years get the connections and understand exactly each step of the process. And I think that was just pure coincidence where we happened to be founded in a place that had a very big textile industry and a lot of experience. So we kind of were able to learn as we went. But like I said, it took a long time. We kissed a lot of frogs along the way to produce a halfway decent product.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Well, it's interesting. So so we are located in North Carolina. I think you know that, just outside of Charlotte. So I love hearing that you're using
Yeah.
some mills in
Yeah.
North Carolina. Well, I really, like I
Yeah.
said, I really appreciate you going through this process and going through that infographic. I love that infographic. Makes it make a lot more sense to me. So just to give everybody an idea of how many, because you said it's really quantity of scale, right? So if I take my fiber to the same mill in North Carolina, it doesn't work, right? So I get that. So about how many farms do you work with on the alpaca? I know you do some things with llama as well, but how many farms typically on average contribute their harvest to you all?
So, 2020 has its own challenges, so I'm not going to
Well,
use
right.
this year's numbers.
Fair
But
enough.
as far as a good ballpark is, in 2019, we collected alpaca fiber or sold finished products to 1,200 alpaca farms, and that's across over 40 states. So there's a few states that are still straggling. We even collected fiber last year from a farm in Alaska. She has 3 alpacas, but she always buys our products. But she said, I know it's costing me an arm and a leg to send in fiber to you, but I
Right.
want to contribute to the fiber pool, so I can say that I do contribute fiber. That was really important to her. But she's in Alaska, so we even sell stuff to Alaska. So
Yeah.
in a nutshell, over 1,200 alpaca farms on average each year, and we ship product or collect fiber from over 40 states.
That's amazing. I love that. I love to hear
Yeah.
that. And if you are an alpaca farmer watching this, which most people watching are probably not alpaca farmers, but if you are, I really encourage you to submit fiber to the fiber pool. It feels awesome to submit our fiber that we spend so much time growing and spend a lot of money, right? Between feed and hay and just the upkeep of the farm and taking care of these animals, and to see the product end up in a finished good. While I can't say that this sock came exactly from my animal's fiber, we say that we contribute fiber to the making of the product that's in our shop. And I love that. So thanks for doing that. Is there anything else that you wanted to share? Wait, actually, one more thing I wanted to say that, sorry, in this month in September, we're going to actually promote through a little bit of a discount on some of our items that we carry in our store that we get from the fiber pool. So everybody can be looking for that communication. Survival socks is one of our biggest selling items, of course. So probably a lot of farms tell you that.
Yeah.
So survival socks and a couple other items that will be in our shop on sale. But is there anything else that you would want to share with the general public about the fiber pool?
I would say that one thing that I really see that's happening now, obviously, like I said before, 2020 is kind of a crazy year, and it doesn't really necessarily fall into any pattern that we've seen. But one thing that we've noticed over the last 5 years especially is the demand for made in the United States, the demand for supporting local small business, and the demand for natural fibers has never been higher. And it really puts alpaca farms, especially ones that kind of have a good relationship with their communities, in a really unique position where they're growing their raw material with their alpaca herd. And they also are sharing the finished products back to their communities. So it's kind of it's a really feel-good story. And I think it's so important for, especially now, I think all those things that have been kind of resonating and bubbling up into the surface, I think they're just gaining so much momentum. And I think it's so important to be supporting your local farms, and it's purchasing products that are sustainable and based on natural fiber. I think it's really important more than ever now to support made in the United States. I think it helps your community, but it also helps your state and your region and the entire country. So I think that's more important than ever. And I think Alpaca fits perfectly into that. I think what we've seen happen with organic food in the last 15 or 20 years, where more and more people are asking about the food and how it's grown and where it was sourced. I think what we see happening in the food movement over the last 20 years, I think in the last few years, we're starting to see that happen with clothing and fashion and textiles. And I think it's a really great thing because the alpaca industry, as it is right now, is in a perfect position to tell our own stories and explain what goes into these products. And they happen to be really great animals. I always joke that alpacas are sheep, but with charisma. And I think that's true. So I think you have really captivating animals, relatively easy to care for. They produce an amazing fiber, and the products that you share with your community have a good story behind them. So I think it's a win-win.
Okay, so I just have to say one little thing, and then we'll let everybody go. People are going to think we planned your comments at the end, because I'm about to drop my September blog post, and it literally is about how we buy local food, and that's become just part of our normal. It's just our normal day-to-day now, right? We seek out local eggs, and then I go in and talk about, have you thought about where you get your clothes and the environmental impact of that? So people are going to think we planned this, but
that's funny.
But that's the blog post we're going to talk a lot about sustainability this month. And it's not just support your local food farmer, but support your local fiber farmer too, whether that's alpaca fiber or sheep or cotton or silk or whatnot, hemp, lots of hemp right now. So anyway, Sean, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we will be promoting some of the products from the fiber pool this month.
Well, I appreciate it, Shelly. Thank you.
Thank you.